Now we're going to look at how to solve quadratic equations. There are three methods we can use to solve quadratic equation in this form. So whatever form you are given, please arrange your quadratic equation in this standard form before you actually proceed to solve them. So some of the methods that you have learned before in high school is actually factorizing. So example, if you have a quadratic equation given in such way, you can actually factorize it using your scientific calculator, and this will be the result of the factorization. And in this way, you can actually directly solve your quadratic equation by equating each factor to 0. So your result will be -8 and also 2. So this is the first method, which is known as the factorizing method with the aid of your scientific calculator. So each time when you have a quadratic equation, you must say example in this form, you have to actually arrange it in standard form. So what you have to do is you have to bring all the values to the left and equate it to 0, which is known as a standard form. So in this case, this equation, you bring the 9 over and you arrange it in this form. And then you use your scientific calculator to factorize. And your final result will be x equals to half and also x equals to -9. The next way, the second method will be completing the square. So you have learned this in high school. So example, if you have a quadratic equation in such a way, make sure it's already arranged to standard form. And then what you do here is you actually take a half of the b, because this is ax squared plus bx plus c, so the b is 10, half of b is 5, half of 10 is 5, and you rearrange it. X plus 5 is x plus 5, and you make it into square because this is a quadratic equation. So -11, and then you add with 5 and you actually minus with 5 square here. So in this case, this is your newly completed square version. So when you rearrange it, you can write it in this form. So therefore, this will show that you can solve this directly because this is a square factor. So it's plus -6. Please remember to consider both plus and minus here. So your x will be actually 1 and also -11. So you can solve quadratic equation using the second method, which is completing the square. You can also do this by factorizing. Okay, example, the next example, you have x squared plus 6x plus 3. And how do you complete the square? You take half of b, which is 3. When you add 3, you will also actually minus 3 square. You add 3 and you minus 3 square here. So therefore, your equation can be written in this form. You actually combine these two numbers. 3 minus 9 is -6. Therefore, you can bring it to the right. And then you complete the square. Please, when you actually root the number, make sure you consider the positive and the negative root of the number when you want to solve. So it will be this and this. Okay, so let's think about what's the next way we can use to solve this. You can also solve this by factorizing or by using the quadratic formula. How do you actually use the quadratic formula to solve a quadratic equation? So example, this is a quadratic equation. Recall back, quadratic equation is in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. So your a is 1, your b is 8, and your c is -2. So this is the formula that we use in high school. X equals to -b plus minus surd of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So I repeat again, your a is 1, your b is 8, and your c is -2. Substitute here accordingly. You substitute here, and your final answer will be, you can calculate this, it will be 2.83 and -5.6. So this is how you actually solve your quadratic equation using the third method, which is actually the quadratic formula. Okay, now let's look at the next part of the quadratic equation, which is actually the discriminant. If you realize, the discriminant is a part that used to solve the quadratic formula. It's a part of the quadratic formula which is used to solve the roots of the quadratic equation. So see, this is actually a discriminant. B squared minus 4ac. The expression under the square root is a discriminant and it's used to identify what type of roots that particular quadratic equation has. Okay, so this expression, please remember, is called the discriminant and is used to discriminate the 3 different types of roots available for a quadratic equation. How to use b squared minus 4ac? We can actually have a look at these 3 graphs. If we plot a quadratic graph given by the points where the graph crosses the x-axis, if this is the case of the graph cuts the x-axis at 2 points. This proves that actually this particular quadratic equation has 2 roots. Therefore, the discriminant calculated will always be positive or larger than 0. The second scenario will be when b squared minus 4ac is a 0. For this type of discriminant property, the particular quadratic graph just touches the graph at 1 point, as you can see here. So this shows that it only has one solution, or more popularly known as repeated roots. The third scenario will be when your discriminant is actually a negative. When the discriminant is actually a negative, that means the graph does not cut the x-axis. Therefore, that particular polynomial equation does not have roots or does not have solutions. What are applications of the discriminant? The first example, find the value of m, value or values of m, given that the equation blah blah has equal roots. If the equation has equal roots or repeated roots, according to the previous slide, it means your discriminant is actually 0. So therefore, we will do the discriminant computation and equate it to 0 in order to solve your m. As you can see here, equal roots, b squared minus 4ac is a 0. And by analyzing this function, your a is actually 1, your b is 2m, and your c is 9. So we substitute into the discriminant equation accordingly, and we will actually get 4m squared minus 36 is a 0. By using this discriminant, you can actually solve your m. Factorize it and solve it. Your m is basically plus minus 3. So these are values of m given that this equation has equal roots. We will move on to another example, which is find the value of a given that this equation has equal roots. So again, equal roots. So therefore, your discriminant is actually a 0. So b squared minus 4ac is a 0. So in this case, your a is that, b is this, and c is 2. We multiply the 2 in, so it's 2a minus 2. So substituting into b squared minus 4ac, accordingly, substitute your a, b, c, and expand it, rearrange it in the form of a proper quadratic, standard proper quadratic equation. Once you simplify, you will get to this. And now let's try to factorize this. You can always use your scientific calculator for factorization purpose, and you will derive to the final answer of a as 5/7 and 3.